Hello, welcome to the Security Update with me, Hamse Daabjeerin. In this program, we will be covering for you the latest stories that matter security in the Horn and East Africa countries ahead on the program. Somaliland executes 6 men after being convicted of murder. Ethiopia rejects interference in Tigray crisis. CIA officer killed in Somalia. Tanzania opposition calls for sanctions against government officials. Uganda politician jailed for calling church foods. Welcome to the program. In this week, our show will focus on the conflict between the federal government of Ethiopia and the Tigray People's Liberation Front. But now, let's start from Somaliland, where the government executed 6 men after being convicted of murder. Previously, the court sentenced them to death, and this is not the first time this Horn of Africa nation executes people convicted murder. Somaliland security forces on Thursday executed 6 inmates by firing a squad after being convicted of committing deliberate killings. The regional courts in Hargeisa and Proa previously sentenced the 6 inmates to death, and the appeals they lodged were exhausted. The execution by firing squad was carried out at Mandera prison, which is 106 kilometers east of the capital Hargeisa and approximately a 2-hour drive distant. Although it's not the first time Somaliland implemented this execution, this is the second time that inmates who committed murder were executed under the current administration headed by President Musa Bihi. Somaliland earlier executions had drawn condemnations by the international community. The European Union warned that the summary executions in the region serve as a setback in the progress made in spreading the rule of law in Somaliland. Somaliland court has sentenced Zakaria Abdi Yusuf to death penalty for raping and killing women in Puroi last month. Previously, the country's president directed the regional judiciary to expedite the verdict of the recent rape and murder in the region. The regional court has sentenced on Sunday Zakaria Abdi Yusuf to death penalty for raping and killing Ugbat Ali in Puroi last month. She was a mother of 3. Residents of Proa took to the streets to protest against the act while demanding justice for the deceased. Ugbat Abdullahi Ali was reportedly raped before being killed in October. Somaliland President Musa Bihi Abdi, who arrived in Togdel region, which was part of his working tour to the eastern region of the country, spoke about the act for the first time. He directed the regional judiciary to expedite the verdict of the recent rape and murder in the region. The president, who described the incident as nasty, has promised that his government will immediately implement the court verdict. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has asked the international community to stand by until the government of Ethiopia submits its request for assistance in the ongoing Tigray crisis. The Prime Minister said the country appreciates the concerns of the international community.
However, a key challenge we faced in this regard.
The Prime Minister said the country appreciates the concerns of the international community. However, the PM said that Ethiopia is very much capable and willing to resolve this situation in accordance with its laws and its international obligations. The statement from his office reads, Mr. Abiy said the country rejects any interference in their internal affairs and asked the international community to respect the fundamental principles of non-intervention under international law. He tweeted his full statement. The statement comes amid concerns from the UN about possible war crimes after a threat by the Ethiopian army to start an assault on Tigray's capital, Mekelle. A deadline set by the government for fighters in the region to surrender is due to expire on Wednesday. Fighting between the government and regional forces in Tigray has been going on for 3 weeks. Hundreds have reportedly been killed and tens of thousands have fled the country.
Human Rights Watch has urged Ethiopia to protect civilians living in Tigray's capital, Mekelle, as the government troops claim recapturing the city. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed on Sunday gave Tigrayan forces 72 hours to surrender, but the Tigray People's Liberation Front, which controls the mountainous region, has vowed to keep fighting.
Mekelle is the capital of rebellious Tigray state and seat of the local government that the federal government is seeking to dislodge with full military forces. The government said that the army was advancing towards Mekele and had taken control of several major towns in the northern part of the regional capital. The Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, while announcing the start of army operations on November 4 against the Tigray People's Liberation Front, said the rebel groups are working to undermine the federal government, having attacked 2 Ethiopian military bases in the region. The fighting has resulted in hundreds of deaths since when it started earlier this month and has forced more than 33,000 people to seek refuge in neighboring Sudan. The United Nations Refugee Agency has said it is preparing for up to 200,000 people to arrive over the next 6 months if the fighting continues. Numbers of the refugees arriving in Sudan from Ethiopia are believed to be children. Aid agencies say an immediate ceasefire would allow them to help thousands of civilians trapped in the protracted conflict.
Let us continue to demonstrate that we are a people of resilience and courage. Let us show that we care for one another in sorrow and sickness, as well as in death.
Meanwhile, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa, in his capacity as the African Union chairman, has announced the appointment of 3 former African state presidents from Mozambique, Liberia, and South Africa to facilitate dialogue to end the conflict, but Ethiopia has rejected the offer, claiming that the conflict is an internal law enforcement mission. Kamil Sadiq, reporting for CBA TV.
Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has reaffirmed his stance that his government will not sit for dialogue with the outlawed Tigray People's Liberation Front, whose leaders have refused a call to surrender as war rages for a 3rd week.
Close observers of Ethiopian politics could clearly see the influence of the TPLF clique.
Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has reaffirmed his stance that his government will not sit for dialogue with the outlawed Tigray People's Liberation Front (TPLF), whose leaders have refused a call to surrender as war rages for a 3rd week. In a meeting with the African Union Special Envoys, Abiy Ahmed said that he is only willing to speak to representatives operating legally in the region. Prime Minister Abiy earlier expressed his government's stand that he would meet with the African Union envoys but will not allow for a dialogue with the Tigray People's Liberation Front, who he described as a greedy junta. Abiy Ahmed appreciated the envoys and said further that his government's failure to enforce the rule of law in Tigray would nurture a culture of impunity with devastating cost to the survival of Ethiopia. There was no immediate comment from the 3 AU envoys regarding the outcome of the meeting. The delegation of the envoy included former Liberian President Helen Johnson Sirleaf, former Mozambique President Joaquim Chissano, and former South African President Galema Motlanthe. Tigray has been almost entirely cut off from the outside world since November 4, when Abiy announced a military offensive in response to the TPLF attack on the Federal Army base. The fighting threatens to destabilize Ethiopia, which has been described as the linchpin of the strategic Horn of Africa. Fighting reportedly remained ongoing outside the Tigray capital of Mekele, a densely populated city of 500,000 people. According to a report by the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, more than 41,000 Ethiopians already fled the armed conflict into neighboring Sudan, and the agency also said it is expecting the figure to rise up in the next few weeks. The United Nations has asked for immediate and unimpeded access for aid, with transport links cut, food and other supplies running out in Tigray. Kamil Sadiq, reporting for CBA TV.
A veteran CIA officer was killed in combat in Somalia in recent days, according to the current and former U.S. officials, a death that's likely to reignite debate over American counter-terrorism operations in Africa. But we will be back after the short break.
Hello out there. Tune in to CBA TV, the voice of East Africa and beyond. There's so many people around the world who are watching along with you.
Welcome to QETC Qalam Educational and Technical Center.
I am Ahmed Mohamed Ahmed. I am a student of Qalam Educational and Technical Center.
Qalam Educational and Technical Center is a place that you can improve your English language.
I came with zero English. Now I'm better.
Come to Qalam Educational and Technical Center. This will help you to improve your English, your listening, your speaking, your writing and reading.
If you want to speak confidently without fearing, come and join Qalam and learn how to speak in front of thousands people without fear.
Welcome back to the program. According to New York Times report, a veteran CIA officer was killed in combat in Somalia in recent days, according to current and former U.S. officials, a death that's likely to reignite debate over the American counterterrorism operations in Africa. The report said the officer was a member of the CIA's paramilitary division, the Special Activities Center, and a former member of the Navy's Elite SEAL Team 6. The identity of the officer remained classified, and the circumstances of the killing were ambiguous. It was unclear whether the officer was killed in a counter-terrorism raid, though the CIA declined to comment. The report highlighted the death will lead to another star being added to the wall in the CIA's lobby, where it memorializes its fallen. The past 20 years have placed a heavy burden on the agency, with dozens of stars bringing the total to 135. The death of the CIA paramilitary officer comes as a draft order is circulating at the Pentagon, under which virtually all of the more than 700 American military forces in Somalia conducting training and counterterrorism missions will depart by the time President Trump leaves his office in January. A suicide bomber blew himself at a restaurant near Mogadishu airport, killing at least 7 people. The attack happened at Gelato Divina restaurant along the road leading to the airport. At least 7 people have died and more than 10 others wounded after a suicide bomber blew himself up inside a restaurant called Gelato Divina on Friday night. The attack, which took place in an area which is not that far away from the airport, is a meeting place for some of the government officials and other members of the public. Bishar Abdelkader is among those killed at the scene. Initial reports say that he landed in Mogadishu on Friday morning from Ethiopia, and he was eventually killed in the attack on Friday evening. Al-Shabaab fighters have claimed responsibility for this attack. This group has been fighting in Somalia to overthrow the federal government and establish their own interpretation of Sharia law state, despite losing many territories including the capital. Al-Shabaab is still capable of carrying out deadly attacks on the military bases and major towns in the Horn of African nation and its neighbors including Kenya. The African Union mission in Somalia, AMISOM, on Sunday handed over an assortment of IT equipment to the Somali Police Force to help build capacity of the National Election Security Task Force for the upcoming national elections.
As we all know,
the National Election Task Force is the highest security organ tasked with security Somalia's upcoming national elections. It is chaired by the Somali Police Force with support from AMISOM Police. Donated by the Danish government, the equipment comprised of multi-biometric scanners, higher-speed laptops, desktop computers, and server racks. Abdel Hassan Mohammed, when he received the donation at a police station within Mogadishu International Airport, the equipment will be distributed to 5 offices across the country to help transmit real-time information with his office in Mogadishu. Deputy Commissioner of Police, DCP Rex Tonton, who presided over the handover ceremony on behalf of the Amisom Police Commissioner, said that Amisom Police had identified the need to support the Election Security Task Force with the IT equipment in order to ensure smooth operation and to secure the upcoming elections.
Amisom Police Component realizes that your office, as the National Election Security Task Force Chairperson, you have to have the necessary logistic requirements and support capacity for you to be able to carry out these tasks. And these tasks will ensure you capture, you store, you disseminate operational administrative information to the police operatives during the election.
Dundon further promised that Amisom Police stands ready to offer support to the National Election Task Force so that it may perform its function efficiently and effectively during the important national election. Amisom Police is expected to work closely with the Somali Police Task Force to provide security at venues and of election officials during the upcoming national elections to ensure that the process is safe and secure.
The Political Affairs Unit of AMISOM has concluded a 4-day training of traditional elders in an effort to equip them with the up-to-date knowledge on how to mediate and resolve conflict and disagreement in their immediate communities and beyond. The highly resourceful training on peacemaking, reconciliation, and conflict management, which was held in Baidoa, attracted over 40 traditional elders in the southwest state of Somalia. Speaking at the event, Governor of Bay Region, Ali Wadeh Abdulrahman, commended AMISOM for organizing the training, noting that community elders have important place and active roles to play in promoting peaceful and harmonious coexistence in their respective community. The governor said further that Somalia has witnessed conflict that range from political disagreements, clan clashes, and the training is coming at the appropriate time to teach the community elders on amicable mechanisms to resolve issues. Speaking on behalf of the elders who were trained by the AMISOM political unit and the AMISOM civilian sector team in the southwest state, Hugas Shah Hugas Wassam stated that the training had enhanced the ability to resolve and prevent conflict at all levels. The already concluded training, according to Fadil Karar, the head of AMISOM civilian sector in Southwest State, was put in place to teach elders on improved communal conflict resolving mechanisms and to prepare them to support in resolving post-electoral disputes in the forthcoming 2020-2021 elections.
AMISOM is playing a role on the process of the elections in Somalia. That's why they have come up with the capacity to enhance the capacity of the clan elders and key community leaders, because the clan elders, they are the one who chooses the delegates, and the delegates normally select or conduct the elections for the parliaments. So they have a big role to play and in this upcoming election.
The spokesperson of the Southwest State Traditional Elders Council, Malak Muhammad Yaqub Deru, said the training came at a time when elders are mediating several conflicts. Deru urged AMISOM to conduct more training sessions to improve the elders' conflict resolution skills in the nearest future. Kamil Sadiq reporting for CBA TV.
Tanzania's opposition leader Tundu Lissu has urged the international community to impose sanctions against state officials linked to human rights abuses in last month's disputed general elections.
President John Magufuli won a second term in the election that was marred with violence and claims of fraud. The United Kingdom and the United States said there had been systemic interference, but the Tanzania's Electoral Commission says there was no fraud. Mr. Lissu, in a tweet, called on the international community to impose targeted sanctions, asset freezes, travel bans and such measures as are necessary to end the impunity. The opposition leader fled to Belgium soon after the election, citing threats to his life.
The election were announced. The police protection that I had during the campaign was removed, and immediately I started receiving death threats, at least on 2 occasions. I was called by people who said that the order for them to deal with me once for all, as they put it.
The government said there was no evidence of threat to opposition leaders.
Uganda's police have opened investigations into their violent crackdown on protesters last week that led to the death of dozens. The Daily Monitor newspaper reports, quoting the police spokesperson.
We had gone to different districts in different sub-regions, of course, before the Uganda police and military rudely interrupted our program.
Popular Ugandan presidential candidate and opposition Robert Kyagulanyi, who is also known as Bobi Wine, has brought his campaigns to a temporary end following injury to members of his campaign team and damage to his car. Bobi Wine said he stopped the electoral campaigns after bullets were fired at his car, puncturing the tires and rendering it immobile. The presidential hopeful added that several members of his staff had been wounded and that some were in a critical condition.
I want to condemn in the strongest terms the violence that was unleashed by the regime. You see, the Museveni regime has always prided in violence. They even call themselves the masters of violence. And indeed, they try as much as possible to send so much fear in the hearts of the Ugandans. When they illegally arrested me in Luuka, people protested. But as President Museveni said it recently when he was in Karamoja, Mr. Museveni, once again, you conceded to ordering the military to kill unarmed civilians, just like he conceded to the fact that he's the one that ordered for the murder of Yasin Kauma and my own murder, only that God saved my life.
Violence has been escalating in Uganda as authorities crack down on supporters of Bobi Wine, who is seeking to end the decades-long rule of 76-year-old President Yoweri Museveni in an election that will hold on January 17. 2 weeks ago, 54 people died in protest after Wine supporters called for his release following a brief arrest at campaign rally. Bobi Wine was later released after he was charged with violating pandemic restrictions on gathering of crowds. Meanwhile, President Yoweri Museveni has defended the actions of the Ugandan police and army, saying that no politician was untouchable.
Some candidates, however, from the beginning saw that they would not observe these precautions and that they would hold rallies as if there was no danger to the people. This irresponsibility must be condemned. These aspirants stand in open-roofed vehicles to wave at the gathered people, address crowds, etc. In spite of the weaknesses of the police that allow such impunity of lawlessness to persist in our towns, the overall security posture of Uganda is robust. A marked force response was immediately activated and 1,014 suspects were arrested, of whom 843 suspects were charged in the courts of law, including Kyagulanyi. 699 were remanded, 93 released on court bail, while 113 were released on police bond, including the Honorable Amuriat. 21 were cleared and released, and 13 are still in police custody, pending court, including those who burnt Wobulenzi.
President Yoweri Museveni has been the president of Uganda since 1986, and opposition to his long rule is increasing rapidly across the country. The president is seeking another 5-year term in the January polls, having amended the constitution twice to allow him to run a 6th term in 2021. Museveni has been accused of using security forces in the country to harass and block opposition politicians' rallies. Kamil Sadiq reporting for CBA TV.
According to the local media, Uganda's Supreme Court has jailed a former presidential aspirant for using abusive language against them, including calling them incompetent fools. Ivan Samuel Sebeduka was sentenced to 3 years in prison for contempt of court.
Ivan Samuel Sebeduka was sentenced to 3 years in prison for contempt of court, according to local media. Mr. Sebeduka had in September filed a petition at the Supreme Court seeking to stop a requirement for presidential aspirants to collect nomination signatures. He also wanted the court to suspend coronavirus safety restrictions issued by the Health Ministry on the conduct of campaign rallies. He used the offensive remarks when defending the petition before the judges. Chief Justice Alfonso Oweyedolo was quoted as saying that criticism against judges should be accurate and fair and should not infringe on the rights of others.
And with that story of the Uganda Supreme Court jailing a former presidential aspirant for using abusive language against them, we'll wrap up our program for this time. Thank you very much for being with us. My name is Hamse Daabjeerin.